Hi Cancer, welcome to June. Happy birthday. Cancer season is upon us and it is welcomed in by a new moon solar eclipse in your sign. It's a big moment. And the thing about the first house is that oftentimes we associate it with our appearance, the way we're perceived. But oftentimes what we fail to remember in many scenarios is that our perception is the most powerful tool we have. The way that we perceive the world around us, the way that we perceive people around us, a lot of it matters. And when you are a sensitive water sign, your perception is intrinsic to your health. The lunar eclipse that I'm filming this under is the Sagittarius lunar eclipse, and for it to occur in your sector of health means that you really need to listen to your body. You really need to listen to how it feels, your routine, what it's doing to your mind, to your soul, and how it's shaping your perception of the world. If you're somewhere toxic, if you're somewhere where people feel very toxic, you cannot help but feel that. Oftentimes in the world, depending on where you are, there is this big onus on being tough. That being sensitive to something, that being upset by something can be perceived as being hysterical. When you're a sensitive water sign, that's very hard, and we see it in the mantra that big boys or big girls don't cry. And we see it in a world where sensitivity is pushed to the bottom as not being successful. So when people enter the workplace, their default premise is that we must be insensitive, we mustn't take other people's feelings into consideration, and we can window dress it as much as we like by pretending to care about mental health and things. But you see in many workplaces that's just not the case, which is why you have to look after your own so much. The new moon in your sign is a reset button. It's a time when you can decide to have a new perception of life, to roam in new environments, to take better care of your own self. Self-care is not always about bubble baths and silk pajamas. It's more to do, in many cases, about standing up for yourself. Of setting healthy boundaries. And of putting yourself first, even though that's not your nature. It's not really. You're more nurturing, you're more caring about other people. But in many cases, Cancer, as we get into your season, you need to put yourself first. Particularly where health is concerned, but also where work is concerned. If you feel challenged, 9 of Wands, if you feel challenged, if you feel like you have to defend yourself, if you have to stick up for yourself, you'll find the words. Even if Mercury is retrograde in your sign, you'll find the words. Of course, communication can be skewed, but you need to trust yourself nonetheless. You need to trust yourself that when somebody says something to you, particularly with Venus retrograde in Gemini, when someone comes to you with gossip, with malice, you must be prepared to understand that engaging with that kind of dialogue is unhelpful for you. It's not going to work out well for you. And if somebody is saying certain things to you that are malicious or problematic, you can only imagine that the person saying them is probably saying them about you too. Be careful of gossips. Be careful of engaging in that kind of dialogue, because you may end up feeling very lonely, the hermit. And be careful where being isolated is leading you to be very unkind to yourself, where it's leading you to attack yourself, because as I say, self-care is oftentimes standing up for ourselves, and many cases the person we need to stand up to most is ourselves. the Lovers. Where there is love in your heart, where there is connection, I think you will find that very stable this month. With the Lovers and the King of Pentacles, it speaks to partnerships which are reliable, partnerships which are fruitful. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in your partnership sector will amplify the energies there, will amplify the love and the stability. It'll also amplify the problems. You need to decide what needs to be reset, what needs to be invested in, and what needs to be demolished. Particularly if you're dealing with a Virgo or an earth sign, a Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, there is a lot of love, a lot of passion, and a lot of tension. And from that comes a lot of clarity. Ace of Swords and the Fool. Many of you will decide in June to begin a new way of communicating, a new way of expressing yourself, a new way of standing up for yourself, and a new way of taking care of yourself. And a new adventure of self that feels a lot more authentic to who you are. And perhaps that involves setting some boundaries, even with the people that have been around a long time, even the people you love the most. And perhaps that comes as quite a shock to them. But particularly as far as love and romance goes, Cancer, the last few years, many of you that have been in situations that are unhealthy, you've learned a lot. I've seen a lot of Cancers over the last few years, with Saturn having been in Capricorn, and it will re-enter in July. It's not to be feared. But I have seen a lot of Cancers learn very hard, very heavy romantic lessons. And I've seen other Cancers that are in very healthy, happy dynamics thrive. And the thing about the planets is that they cannot crumble something that is built to last. And in many ways, the Tower energy, whereby you feel like certain stable foundations are being challenged, you get to question how stable they really were. And the Tower moment is always a chance to rebuild. And that doesn't mean that many of you are going to go through breakups. It simply means that in terms of romance, Venus retrograde has been challenging. For some of you it's financial, and for some of you, you just feel like you've exhausted your options in some regard in your life and you don't know how to go forward. You'll get the answers. The Sagittarian eclipse, being in your third house of day-to-day routine, has been quite a shake-up. It has been quite a Tower moment. It's been a Tower moment for a lot of signs. Eclipses are tough. There's no way around it. But for a lot of you, the beautiful energy of this month comes with your sign. It comes with the new moon in Cancer. It comes with clarity. It comes with a fresh sense of adventure. Something that you can actually nurture and something that you can grow. Something that you can go forward in fearlessly. Great clarity. Great changes in perception. Ready to take on a new area, a new environment. And Nine of Cups. For a lot of you, it is very optimistic. The end of the month, very optimistic, where you have been pessimistic. I think for many of you, where you're dealing with another water sign, where you're dealing with a Scorpio or a Pisces, who they or you feels a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, a lot of fear. It improves at the end of the month. For those of you dealing with people who are too quick to rush in and out, too quick to be cutting with their words, too quick to drag you into their drama, exhaust you and use you up and spit you out, I think a lot of that comes to an end finally with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. It's a funny thing with Cancers. I always find them perhaps because I'm a Scorpio myself, but I always find them, particularly male Cancers, the most engaging to have conversations with, one-on-one conversations, one-on-one dialogues. And I think for a lot of you, there's much of that this month. I think by the end and going into your season, you have a lot of chances for dialogue, a lot of chances for meaningful conversations, and a lot of opportunities to help heal people in your life. If you have a lot of anxiety surrounding a water sign in your life, what matters is if you are sure this is what you want. If you are, it seems to be yours, and if it's not, it's not. I think for a lot of Cancers, there's people from the past re-emerging, as there is for many signs. Particularly with Venus being in your 12th house and in retrograde, the door to the past is open for you in many ways, with water signs, with air signs in particular, and also with earth signs, particularly if it's a Virgo. But nonetheless, for a lot of you, the shake-ups, whether they result in reconciliations, whether they result in clarity, they propel you forward and they propel you on a new journey. And it's one that you're willing to invest a lot of energy into. And if it's career, if it's a new job that you seek, I think it's a chance for you to use your talents of persuasion, of communication, of clarity. Going forward, you have a lot of power. It's a double-edged sword, bear that in mind. You have the power for clarity, but you also have the power for a lot of hurt for people. So for some of you that are going backwards, for some of you that want to find yourself in someone else's story, be very clear that that's what you want. Be very clear that that is what you feel on a heart level. Those of you that are returning to people from the past where there has been hurt on your end, you still have a lot of potential to do so. And Venus retrograde is bringing a lot of past relationships to the fore. I think for you, there is a possibility that you may at some point during the month think you really want something, and you could be wrong. So be careful. But do not be afraid of establishing boundaries with people that you love very much and people that have maybe, you know, where there is people in your life that are taking energy from you and they're not in alignment with who you are, and you feel depleted by them and you feel unhappy with them. Setting a boundary, if they reject it, if they push it away, if they make you feel bad for it, they're not your person. And if that, honestly, for most of you, I think goes for work. Be careful of who reveals their true colours to you this month, because they have the power to bring you down with them. And I think if they do, again, particularly if it's with an earth sign, it could get ugly if it's built on gossip. When someone presents you with information this month, Cancer, with Mercury retrograde in your sign, take it, listen to it, don't act on it. Let it play out the way it's going to play out for them. Don't necessarily involve yourself. I know that you like to nurture. I know that a part of you wants to deeply connect with people. But be careful where people are abusing your nurturing nature to feed on, you know? Just be mindful. You'll see what I mean. I will see you in the extended. Take care, Cancer.